Hello. I would just like to open this by saying that we are hiring for anyone who knows how to tackle. But regardless, welcome to WKNC's official sports podcast in a den. Today, we're going to be going over a football game that happened over the weekend that had a result. We're going to be going over the men's soccer program with their win over Clemson and what's coming up next. We'll be talking about the win-loss against Wake Forest that the volleyball team had. And we'll be finishing up by previewing the women's basketball season as that's starting to roll up and get some momentum. So, get your headphones on and let's get straight to it. Well, hey, NC State's good at the other football. Am I right? I'm going to skip over the Notre Dame soccer game this weekend just out of pure PTSD. And we're going to be looking at the number 19 ranked UNC Greensboro instead, in-state thing. Finally, a win and an off game for Donovan Phillips. He had no shots on goal today, or that day. However, shots on goals from Maloney, Healy, and a goal from DeFrancesco in a 1-0 win wasn't enough to outdo Clemson, who was expected to have a really good offense head into this game. I mean, my final score projection was 3-2, and if you know soccer, that's like absolutely electric. Defense showed up too. Only one shot on goal that was given up by our defense. And Logan Erb, he doesn't have to try. Season low, I believe, 6 fouls on like the whole game. I guess 1 offsides. But if you can tell me what offsides is, I'll give you like $1 million. As someone who doesn't watch soccer outside of like the World Cup and NC State. I digress. Shout out to our defenders, our coach, our goalie. We're one of the best defenses in the country. You can't tell me otherwise. I mean, look at that. Clemson has a good offense. I believe FAU had a good offense. I think. Sorry, I'm thinking. Hold on. One's coming to me. I think Virginia had a good one. I think we played Virginia. Yeah, I mean, got things figured out. Defensively and offensively, I'm sort of convinced that other players can step up when it's needed. I think that I'm happy. There is nothing that NC State could do that would make me upset. I think they did drop down in the rankings ever since their loss, but now they're back in the top 6. They're 6th place, which makes them the second highest team in the ACC outside of Stanford. But what are we going to do? I think we played them this season, though. Now I got to double check. But first, or while, I'll also talk about UNC Greensboro. Coming from the SoCon conference, and they are just lighting things up, or at least they're trying to. You got to give them credit where credit's due. Furman's a pretty good team over there. But let's see. I mean, they have no ties or losses. I mean, they can't as a small conference school. I feel like they have to play perfect and they have to dominate. And they have had some blowout wins in their conference. That's enough to keep their head over water. But, of course, still is good to kind of be cautiously optimistic if you're up in this position. Let me see what else I have to say about them. Lost my notes. UNC Greensboro, their stats aren't really that strong. And, of course, they plummeted out of They went from like 8th to 23rd after losing to, I believe, Furman, as I mentioned before. Pretty good team. UNC Greensboro, 59% save percentage and a 45% shot and goal rating. Puts them second to last in conference defensively, but one of the best in the offensive front. And I mean, offensively, they have a pretty notable big star, Enzo Dolfolo, 7 goals, 6 assists. Sammy Lachikar is the shot and goal leader, like percentage wise. Their goalie, Seth Wilson, has 56% save and 3 shutout games, I believe. And Arnaud Tadafin is also a good offensive player. He's gotten some additional statistics as well. This UNC Greensboro team is one that can demolish their conference opponents. We've seen it before. And what they're trying to do is at least hold their own against big-name opponents and prove themselves as I don't know if it's either a dark horse or a true contender. Because, I mean, you see a lot of teams like this who played big and then flamed out, like that 2020 Dayton. Even though they didn't play the NCAA tournament, I believe that's a team that would have probably flamed out just because that's just how it is. That's just how it is. Smaller schools don't show up against big opponents. They have beaten High Point when they're number 5, but I mean, they lost to South Carolina. So it's just not really sure what UNC Greensboro we're going to get. They're going to be coming off a road trip game against Virginia and a homecoming game with Wofford. NC State has obviously got Notre Dame. This is going to be a good game, though, just because it's 2 top 20 teams that are facing off and are looking to kick some butt. And I believe that they can, and I believe that they will. They've had to put a final goal projection. I don't even have to worry about talking about how they will win. I think it'll be 2-0 win for NC State. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the volleyball. Okay, NC State, I said they probably weren't going to win both. They did not. They lost the first one 0-3. But they did win the second one 3-1. I kind of have to split on just the good, bad, and I guess I don't have too many notes. I didn't really watch it just because I was, school. Rebecca Ring, Samira Dorsey, they balled out. I think they got nearly 2/3 of the kills split between them. And then, of course, Sydney Daniels, she got a good amount too. Falar, 39 assists in game 2, 31 in game 1. She's kind of taken over the role from Ashley Mullen. First it was kind of Mullen, split, and now it's all Falar. They took advantage of service errors that helped them win good amount of sets, especially in the second game. And Ring, Dorsey, Francombe, Bryant, a lot of blocks, especially by non-defensive players, was definitely helpful in winning that second game in the series. However, the early timeouts keep happening. The coach keeps getting her hand forced, and she has to take out timeouts early on when it doesn't help later. And it feels like it's got a small success rate. It's just like when the set starts crappy, it'll continue to be crappy. And I get the kind of disaster mode management, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's frustrating. Let's see. They trailed in shooting percentage in both the loss and the win by 0.02% in the win, and then by a whole 2% in the loss, which doesn't sound that much until you realize that it just makes all the difference. I mean, same amount of opportunities and then that slight advantage, that's enough to get 1-point wins. I mean, what would you rather have? A 67% accuracy or 70% accuracy? That's just how it is. I mean, NC State, they're good enough to stay competitive, but they're not good enough to win. Showed off the strengths and the weaknesses. I'm glad to see Dorsey improve in her performance and Fuller stepping up as well. I'm also happy I saw some deaf players with Care and Cropper. They both had big improvements. It was an off series for Sujia, but Lorna Kerr helped with the digs, which I thought was really good. I think it's good that we have players who can kind of step in. I know I mentioned that a lot of them are role players and not really stars, but they can step in and provide serviceable minutes, which is good. I mean, I don't think this team's in a complete disaster mode, but I think getting stars, keeping them here, and then trying to build around that would be helpful. So I think we're back at 500 and looking to get higher as play middle of the conference player Clemson. Clemson's coming off 6 consecutive losses to some opponents we've seen before: Miami, SMU, UNC, Duke, Florida State, Pitt. Not in any particular order. I just mentioned those first 4 who we played. They also lost FSU and Pitt. Could NC State increase that streak to 7? Who knows? They are around 8th to 9th in a good chunk of major offensive and defensive stats, such as opponent hit percentage, their own hit percentage, kills, opponent blocks. But they're one of the best in the country with digs. I mean, just look at McKenna Gidlin. She's been kind of the front leader in that regards. But they are dead last in the conference stand-ins with their 0-6 record, and they are dead last in blocks. This is a really bad team in the conference, and this is a great opportunity for NC State to continue to try to build some. I know I keep mentioning building momentum, but I think it's important. If you can't win these games when it matters, then you can't win these games when they matter, you know? What does that even mean, actually? I just think it'll be good for a volleyball program to get other quality wins to try to keep themselves in the conversation as a volleyball program that can get people who can play well. Because now it's more about pride. If you don't even believe that they could be a contender, then it is just about pride and making sure they do things right. Especially since some notable players, like Pitt, Stanford, Louisville, they're all on the schedule. So at least look like someone like, okay, let's not look past this. You never look past, but let's just actually give them some serious thought. I mentioned Gidlin, but some other stars on the Clemson roster with their 9.5 assists and 21 total service aces. Catherine Sant is kind of the quarterback of this program, and her star receiver is Kennedy Wagner with 3.85 kills, which I think is 6th in the ACC as herself. Although there is no other major coordinator, there's only 2 other players who are above 1 kill per set. So do with that what you will. NC State should be able to take care of business. I think they have a much deeper roster, even though they don't have a big star. I think they have a lot of contributors, and they have a lot of ways to approach this that Clemson just will not be able to handle. This is a roster that I believe is better than Duke and UNC, and I think they both really just wipe the floor with Clemson, and I think they'll continue here. Clemson's going to win. No, NC State's going to win. It'll probably be 3-2. All right, I'll start getting into the last part with the women's basketball. So, yeah, NC State did not take care of business. Our record's now 4-3. I don't even want to mention the score. I'm going to do just good and bad, both sides of the ball. We're just going to kind of rip this Band-Aid off. Well, we're going to kind of do the kiss before the brick, actually. The soft little peck. Good things about NC State. Terrell Anderson's a really good receiver. That 45-yard touchdown pass was really good. How kept them competitive early on. And I thought overall that despite the poor offensive line performance, I thought that the offense played pretty cleanly. Just consider the second half compared to the first half. I thought that Notre Dame definitely had to adjust in the second half if they wanted to beat NC State. The bad, here comes the brick. 4 sacks given up, pressure on almost every play, and a fumble under center. This offensive line did not play good at all. So bad, in fact, that not only stifled the passing game with C.J. Bailey kind of being stuck in pressure and being forced to have to throw it out, but it also hurt the running game with Hollywood Smothers only getting 46 rushing yards on the game. I mean, stifling Smothers meant Bailey had to be the gunslinger, and he's not a gunslinger. He's not going to be the guy that can throw up the ball 50 times a game and gets you 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. That's not who he is. And that's just something that NC State's going to have to accept. That's why they need to have a good offensive line so they can kind of have an established running game. And when that got shut away, we see it shuts down the offense entirely. Especially when we look at that fourth quarter with 3 consecutive interceptions. Like, I think it's 4 consecutive turnovers because it was like the first interception, and then the fumble, and then the other 2. The first one was just awful. Like, he broke the pocket, and I think he underthrew it, but it's like he was staring down the defensive back the whole time. So it's like, I just don't get it. The second one was just him trying to force a play. I think he got backed up like 20 yards, and it's just like, stop it. Just throw it out. Try to make it look convincing. Like, I will take, like in that situation, I feel like any coach would take a intentional ground in. Like, how many yards does that penalize you for? Yeah, just 10 yards versus an intercept. I mean, he was already getting backed up 10 yards. I don't know. That was terrible. The last one, I can't really blame him for. That was just good coverage. Oh, well. I mean, and another thing, the offense, it cannot capitalize. I saw this. 2 turnovers, -2 points from turnovers. And I say -2 because it was a fumble, I think, on Jadarian Price that was lost. And then it immediately became a freaking... The fumble, I think, happened like immediately after. And it kind of just made it all like a moot point. So that was just frustrating. I kind of gave this... I still do the MVP, offensive and defensive MVP. I gave it to Terrell Anderson. He's going to be looking really good for the transfer portal. Just watch. Defense on our part just could not stifle anyone, really. 2 turnovers, though. Jadarian Price's fumble loss. Who recovered that? I did not put down who recovered it. Cian Sloan. Thank you. Assad Brown with an interception. Our secondary defense is absolute, like, I don't think I'm allowed to curse, but it's something that you pick up with a bag when you're taking your dog on a walk. I mean, I kind of highlighted some plays even, just how bad the secondary had done. Like, if you look 12 minutes and 46 seconds left in the first quarter, it's like it looked like the linebackers were playing zone defense, but the safeties were playing man because it's like on that throw, like the receiver, I think it was Faison, was wide open. And I'm trying to, look back at the play in my head. It was like I saw the safety, like he had his guy, all of the linebacker. Like I swear that receiver Faison, he just ran through the running backs and the cornerbacks. It was like, what are you doing? Somebody get him. Get on him. That's just awful blown coverage. The other play I mentioned was 7 minutes into the third. 5 defenders, no one to cover on that touchdown. It was like, I swear, it was just like he was. I mean, there was some space. There was a good enough space for any quarterback to get a touchdown that play, including a freshman who's playing pretty well. It's just like, because I swear, like, I know that the linebackers are kind of versatile, like, they can't really do anything, but it was like, I swear, I saw the number of players that just weren't covering someone. Like, we can't double cover. It's not like he was going to be breaking through anyways. It's just, you know? Sorry, it's really getting to me. And of course, Love, he played real dominant. I don't even think he got touched in that first touchdown rush. Like, he literally just kind of sped walk into the end zone. And then the second one, he just kind of like got to play jump rope and just hopped over it. CJ Carr, he got all day in the pocket. I mean, if you look at that 3 minutes left in the second quarter, that throw to Raritan, like even when they got pressure on him, he was just able to just place that ball perfectly, even with 2 defenders. And it's like, what are you doing? It was like one guy ahead of him, one guy behind him, but there was still just enough space that any quarterback receiver duo worth a dang would get it. Like, that feels like, name the worst quarterback receiver duo you can think of. They probably would be able to convert that. Now I'm trying to think of an instance. Like, if you put like Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, like Justin Fields would make that kind of pass. It's just NC State cannot win against good football teams. It is decided. The defense cannot do anything. The offense has to do everything. NC State just can't do anything against good defenses either. So it's like we rely on the offense, but the defense isn't doing, like, the defenses are quality, and then it's just like we die. I think, it's like the 5th worst defense when it comes to just yards given up, scores per game, just kind of 2 most basic defensive metrics. I don't really care what your opinion is on advanced statistics. Or just kind of going at it just from a simple argument. Undeniable that NC State's defense sucks. The only team that we played against who was like worse than us was Virginia Tech. Of course, Campbell, ECU, 2-1 record in those games. And just look at the next 4 opponents. They are all in that top, like they average out in that top 5. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I think it's Miami, Georgia Tech, Florida State. Florida State maybe is beatable. Pitt. There's a very good chance that NC State could finish 5-7, miss a bowl game, and then Doran's on the hot seat. It's very likely. We got to take that bye week to just relearn the whole fundamentals of football before we bring over Pitt. And they're probably going to get us. I don't know. I'll talk more about Pitt next week. It's just NC State. We got to clean our stuff up football-wise. That's all I got to say before I get too hot-headed. Coming up next, men's soccer, UNC Greensboro. Ooh. Well, I guess just kind of a funny little story. a Panthers podcaster quit after Panthers started 1-3, and now they've won 2 straight games since. Maybe if I quit my job right now, I will get NC State onto a big winning streak. You know, so I guess in the comments, just tell me to quit. For the sake, I will be the martyr to help us maybe get a bowl game. All right, I'll talk about the women's basketball. Their preseason rank, I believe, is number 9. Like, they just released it. I think that puts them as one of the highest in the conference. It's just outside of the Elite 8, which is about where they finished last year, where they got knocked out by LSU, who is, of course, a decent program. Okay. They're second in the conference behind Duke, which adds up. Duke was the conference champion. That was another team that we lost to in the big playoff game, and we lost the ACC championship to them. NC State, I think they're trying their hardest to not make this a rebuild, but more of a retool, because they definitely did lose a lot of big names in the league. And I mean, just look at Sanaya Rivers. She got drafted by the Suns. And I mean, she's a franchise player there. I think she's like she's one of the only 6 WNBA players ever with 100 steals and blocks combined in her rookie season. And I mean, she may not be a star player, but I think she's a really good quality starter, especially on the defensive end, and scoring about 9 points a game. She is just very important to the Suns rebuild. Asia James, she's coming off the bench, quality backup with about 8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. She's not a big contributor or a star, but she could have herself a staple WNBA career if she just takes advantage of the minutes she's given. Some other players who are leaving: Madison Hayes, she was one of our guards. She graduated as the team's rebound leader and had an 82% field goal accuracy. And then some backups, some bottom of the depth chart players who left. Lacey Steele transferred to Wisconsin. Lizzie Williamson, center, she graduated. I talked a lot before about my concern with the forward depth on this roster. I think that was overblown. I did not realize how many guards NC State had in general, but I mean, we got some decent enough players that you could argue that we'll be able to handle ourselves. Especially since we got 2 newcomers who I think could be starters, who could be really big contributors, and then 2 who kind of fill out some depth, who I also think are going to be quality. First of all, we got to talk about Camille Pierre. Transferring from Vanderbilt, double machine with Vanderbilt. Wes Moore tried to scout her out of high school. She's going to be something else. She's a really great scorer in the paint. I've seen her, create some plays as well. I'm excited to see what we can get out of Camille, and if she can kind of build herself up as a draft prospect, especially since I think she's a junior now. She could definitely have a strong season in the ACC and prove herself as one of the top players. I mean, at very least, she can produce stats, a lot of scoring, a lot of rebounding. She might be able to squeeze in at center or power forward for the team. Another notable inclusion is one of our 2 freshmen, Adelaide Jernigan. Yeah, Adelaide Jernigan. I think she's the one who's going to be more of the depth player. Quality shooter, solid playmaker, prone to mistakes, which I guess happens with every young guard. She'll probably come in and fill up for Zoe Brooks when she goes to the league 2 years from now. I mean, no, she's eligible. Do they have? I think they have to be seniors though. Actually, I could have sworn they just had to be juniors, but I think I'm thinking the NFL. Sorry, I'm googling it. I wish I could just type in noises. Okay, must be seniors. Okay, so Camille would also have to wait a year. We don't have anyone on our roster that's draftable yet. Okay, so the one who I did think was gonna come in, Destiny Kaishi Winan. She's called Kaishi because her play is very similar to Kyrie Irving, where she's just like very athletic, very skilled, a really great dribbler. She could start day one as the point guard, have Zoe Brooks as the shooting guard. I I'm interested to see what they do with our guards because Brooks, Wunin, and Samaraya Jones, I believe, is also one who was pretty good. I liked what I saw out of her. And then, of course, another newcomer, a Yukon vet, even though she only averaged 1 point a game, 1 rebound. Cadence Samuels, I think, who could come in and be a very strong backup for this team. And I mean, that's all the big new players. If I had to kind of guess where starting five is looking like, Kaishi at point guard, Zoe Brooks at shooting guard, even though maybe she'll be point guard, and then Samaraya Jones as shooting guard, have a freshman wait a year. On the forward front, or have Samaraya. Oh no, she's kind of short. Maybe have Zoe do a little shooting forward work. Either that or Tilda Trigger could come in and get herself some more minutes. And then at center, of course, Camille as the power forward, maybe even small ball center. And then as the center for our team, it'll probably be it could be either Collier or Awu. I think Collier would probably be a better choice, actually. That's just kind of my projections. That's neither here or there. I haven't really watched any practices. I don't think they kind of host those publicly, or at least they don't. They don't allow me near there. So it'll be interesting to see. Some notable out of conference opponents is number 8 Tennessee to open up the season, number 18 USC, the Oklahoma in the ACC SEC Challenge. I think that'll be a good game, and well, I guess that's pretty much about it. But yeah, the home conference opener isn't until December 18th with Georgia Tech. But our actual home opener is against Maine next month. So get your tickets. Noah got mine. And I guess kind of what's the mindset going into this season? I'm glad you didn't ask. Women's basketball, very top heavy sport. I mean, just look at the Las Vegas Aces. They swept the NBA Finals, WNBA Finals. They won 3 of the last 4. If you're not one of the top dogs, then you just aren't in the running. But NC State, they have been in the conversation for one of the best in the ACC as long as they have Wes Moore. I mean, just last season, they were top 5 in point differential. They had great blocks, rebounds, points scored. NC State still has to prove that they belong as one of these top dogs, but with Pierre and Brooks, I think they'll do just fine. And I think they'll be one of the top players in the conference. They'll be back in the conversation. And if everything goes right, NC State could return to the Elite Eight. But I digress. That's all the time I have today. I hope you enjoyed listening. I hope you have a good day. And, go Pack.